Separated by 150 kilometers of water and 5 decades of bitter history, the United States and Cuba have begun to make up by restoring their diplomatic and economic ties. U.S. President Barack Obama says it marks a new chapter in U.S. Cuba relations, moving beyond what he said was an outdated approach. For more on this historic deal that caught everyone off guard, Park Ji-won reports.
Wednesday's historic announcement that the United States and Cuba will normalize their long-severed relations was made possible after 18 months of secret talks between the two leaders.
Neither the American nor Cuban people are well served by a rigid policy that's rooted in events that took place before most of us were born. The United States will reestablish an embassy in Havana, and high-ranking officials will visit Cuba. Where we can advance shared interests, we will, on issues like health, migration, counterterrorism, drug trafficking, and disaster response.
This decision by President Obama deserves respect and recognition from our people. I would like to thank and recognize the support of the Vatican, and especially that of Pope Francis, in helping improve the relations between Cuba and the United States.
Bringing an end to more than 50 years of hostility, Cuba released U.S. aid worker Alan Gross on humanitarian grounds after he spent 5 years in a Cuban prison. In return, the U.S. will also release 3 Cuban intelligence agents. World leaders, particularly those from Latin American countries, hailed the news.
I think that the possibility of the end of the blockade gives Cuba the conditions to coexist with the international community, something that is extremely relevant for the Cuban people and for all of Latin America.
I want to point out that this is a key step, a historic step, a brave move that will allow for an important advance in the process of integration for all America.
Experts say the restoration of ties will benefit people in both countries.
It'll be easier for Americans to travel to Cuba. It'll be easier for Americans to send money to Cuba. And it will be much easier for Americans to support the emerging private sector, even with trade and capital infusions. All of that should help a rather weak Cuban economy.
Washington and Havana severed diplomatic relations in 1961 after former Cuban leader Fidel Castro seized power and became the first communist leader of the country in 1959. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.